In Matthew 5:17, Jesus tells the disciples that he came to fulfill the law and the prophets. He came to put them both into force, to accomplish their purpose, satisfy their demands, and fulfill their expectations. In the next verse, Jesus goes on to say, "For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot, will pass from the law until all is accomplished." According to Jesus, before any change in the law can occur, heaven and earth must pass away. Now, an observant reader might respond, hang on, didn't Jesus change the law when he pronounced all foods clean? And didn't Paul set aside circumcision? Yes, they did, which can only mean one thing, namely, that heaven and earth have indeed passed away. How can this be? When the Bible is talking about heaven and earth as the physical, material world, the context tells us. For example, Genesis chapter 1, Psalm 104 verse 5, and Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 4. At other times, the same language is used quite differently, especially among the prophets. For example, when God established his covenant with Israel, he addressed them as heaven and earth in Deuteronomy 32 verse 1. And described his work in setting up the covenant as establishing the heavens and laying the foundations of the earth in Isaiah chapter 50 verse 15 and 16. Later, in speaking of the judgment to come upon the kingdom of Babylon in Isaiah chapter 13, he used the language of decreation, saying that he would make the heavens tremble and the earth shake. And when speaking of the destruction of Edom, he said that all the host of heaven would rot away, and the sky would be rolled up like a scroll, Isaiah 34 verse 3. Each time, the context makes clear that what this cosmic language was describing was the beginning or end of a kingdom or covenant. And so, as the time of Christ approached, God again spoke, this time through the prophet Haggai, saying, "Yet once more, in a little while, I will shake the heavens and the earth." The book of Hebrews, a book all about the changing of the covenant from old to new, picks up on this and quotes Haggai as confirmation that God was removing the old covenant to make way for the new. In all these instances, God is not describing the physical universe, but the kingdoms and the covenants that were governing them. And so, when the Jews heard Jesus speak about the passing away of heaven and earth, their ears would not have tingled with scenes from the Terminator. Their understanding would have come from the words of their own prophets. The birth of the new covenant required the death of the old covenant. In the time of Jesus, that old covenant and its kingdom were coming to an end, as God gave the whole thing one last almighty shake. In Jesus Christ, the old world went into the grave and the new world came out. The resurrection was big. It was huge. Through the resurrection, a new heaven and a new earth, that is, a new kingdom and a new covenant, had burst forth into this world and is now established forever. Does this mean we are now lawless? By no means. Jesus explicitly tells us he did not come to abolish the law and the prophets. He came to fulfill them. And so while the particulars may have changed regarding the law, the grand principles have not. Through his resurrection, Jesus has established his dominion through a new covenant. God has shaken heaven and earth, and the world will never be the same. Spurgeon once said, commenting on Isaiah chapter 65, "Did you ever regret the absence of the burnt offering or the red heifer? Did you ever pine for the Feast of Tabernacle or the dedication? No, because though these were like the old heavens and earth to the Jewish believers, they have passed away, and we now live under a new heavens and a new earth. The substance is come, and the shadow has gone, and we do not remember it. We still require a priest, but it is no longer the sons of Aaron, it is the Son of God. We still require a Passover lamb, but that lamb is Christ. We still require circumcision, but it is not of the flesh but of the heart, by the Spirit. And we are still commanded to gather for worship, only now it is not on the Temple Mount. Instead, a way has been made where we can ascend into the heavenlies each Lord's Day. Today we are worshipping God as citizens of a new Jerusalem, with ourselves as a new creation. And, like the rest of creation, we are being slowly transformed, renewed, and redeemed until that day when Jesus will have perfected the lot.